Thank you for starting your week with us. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Moon Jae-in in Seoul. Let's get started with a glimpse of today's highlights. Despite recent claims by U.S. President Donald Trump that Korea continues to enjoy a massive trade surplus with the U.S., latest data show that is not actually the case. The Moon Jae-in government is pushing for new tax reforms that would raise taxes on the wealthy and large corporations, with hopes of bolstering job creation and providing better welfare. These stories and more coming right up. President Moon Jae-in arrived home early Monday morning after wrapping up his 6-day trip to Germany for the G20 summit in Hamburg. At the meeting, President Moon introduced the new administration's economic policies centered on promoting investments and innovation. He also expressed his strong commitment to reject trade protectionism and actively respond to climate change. He is set to deliberate over follow-up measures on issues discussed at the G20 summit while getting himself up to speed on domestic developments that have occurred during his absence. The president will be taking a day off to rest with no meetings with his cabinet or top aides scheduled for Monday. Recent data shows that Korea's trade surplus with the U.S. is actually on the wane, debunking U.S. President Donald Trump's claim that the U.S. is on the losing end of their bilateral FTA. And this could work to Korea's advantage if the deal goes back to the negotiating table. Our Kim Ji-yeon explains.
During the bilateral summit between Korea and the United States, President Donald Trump signaled a renegotiation of the free trade agreement between the two countries, citing an imbalance in trade.
Our trade deficit with South Korea has increased by more than $11 billion. Not exactly a great deal.
President Trump claims Korea is enjoying a surplus of around $20 billion a year from its trade with the U.S. However, data shows Korea's trade surplus with the U.S. has actually waned. Data from the Korea International Trade Association shows trade surplus during the first 5 months of this year through May amounted to nearly $6.9 billion US dollars, down by $4.1 billion from the same period last year. This is mainly due to tougher U.S. regulations, including anti-dumping measures imposed on Korean automobile and steel exports to the country.
Korea needs to actively take part in the renegotiation process if it comes to that, in emphasizing that the U.S. is not on the losing end of the deal.
Korea's annual surplus from its trade with the U.S. amounted to $23.2 billion last year. Kim Ji-yeon, Business Daily.
The Fair Trade Commission Chair Kim Sang-jo says he plans to tighten the enforcement of the country's competition laws using means available in both the civil and criminal justice systems. Speaking at a forum here in Seoul earlier today, Kim said the FTC plans to expand the role of the civil justice system in the processing of antitrust lawsuits and damage filings. Kim stressed the role of the antitrust watchdog to aid in job creation by ensuring fair competition for small and medium-sized companies, reforming the country's large conglomerates, promoting innovation, and protecting consumer rights. The Moon Jae-in administration is preparing to submit a new tax bill that proposes a tax hike on the wealthy and large conglomerates in an effort to bolster the wider economy. Our Elia Kim has more.
The new government is eyeing new tax reforms that would increase the tax rate on high-income earners and large corporations to bolster government revenues, enabling them to create new jobs and provide better welfare measures for the poor. Rather than simply increasing the nominal tax rate, the bill seeks to extend the lower threshold for the top tax bracket to include those with an annual income exceeding $260,000 US above the base standard, as opposed to the previous $435,000. This change would add an extra 40,000 people to the top income bracket and amount to $3,500 of additional taxes levied per person. Inheritance and gift taxes would be reduced to 7% if voluntarily reported, with plans to eventually reduce the rate to 3% or abolish it altogether. There would also be new measures to increase tax revenue from large corporations by reducing their tax breaks on investment in R&D and facilities and raising capital gains taxes for large shareholders. These tax reforms are expected to bolster job creation and allow the government to finance expanded welfare measures. Other changes aimed to boosting employment include tax breaks for hiring new employees and other incentives for increasing employment. Lastly, people paying monthly rent on properties will receive tax rebates of 12% a year from the current 10%. With President Moon set to be briefed on the bill this week, the tax revisions are expected to be announced towards the end of the month. Elliot Kim, Business Daily.
Foreign investors were net buyers of Korean equities for the 7th consecutive month in June, with their total shareholdings tallied at $520 billion at the end of last month. According to the Financial Supervisory Service, the figure represents nearly 1/3 of the total market cap of local shares. For the first half of this year, total net purchases by all investors in the local bourse came to $9.4 billion. U.S. investors took up the largest portion of foreign net purchases, accounting for nearly $1.6 billion, followed by investors from France and Ireland. The Korean equity markets were off to a divergent start to the week, and our Eunice Kim joins us on the phone today to tell us more about the overall stock market performance as well as upcoming market events. Hello, Eunice.
Good afternoon.
All right, so how did the Korean stock market perform on the first day of this week?
Well, June, both had a strong start and both fell to a loss at one point in the trading day. While the benchmark Kospi was able to recover to a gain, edging up 9 basis points to close at 2,382.1 points at the closing bell. The tech-heavy Kosdaq dropped below the 660 mark today, closing 0.89% weaker. The G20 meeting in Hamburg over the weekend looks to have had little impact on Monday's trading, as it did not deliver any big surprises. Institutions' aggressive net buying pushed the benchmark Kospi over to the black as retail investors switched to net sellers during the trading day. Foreigners also offloaded 57.8 billion won worth of stocks. That's about $50 million. By sector, electronics, construction, banks, and securities all showed an upward momentum, while services, transportation, and electric gas fell. Number 1 by market cap, Samsung Electronics surged by 1.67% on the back of its robust Q2 earnings outlook. SK Hynix also logged a 1.05% gain on investor optimism in semiconductors. On the other hand, Hyundai Motor, Naver, and KEPCO all were seen weakening.
Then what market events are lined up for this week?
Well, on the global stage, many eyes will be on Fed Chair Janet Yellen's testimony on Capitol Hill. She'll deliver her semi-annual address on monetary policy at the House on Wednesday and the Senate on Thursday. Lawmakers likely will ask tough questions as to why the U.S. Central Bank is raising rates at a time when inflation is still fairly subdued. You'll remember the Fed had raised its key benchmark rate for the second time this year earlier at its June meeting. Market watchers will also keep an ear out for what the slew of Fed officials scheduled to speak this week will say. San Francisco Fed President John C. Williams kicks it off in Sydney, Australia, followed by Fed Governor Lael Brainerd in New York City on Tuesday, all the way to Dallas Fed President Robert Kaplan on Friday in Mexico City. Also, on the U.S. calendar this week, we have JOLTS, that's the Job Openings and Labor Turnover Survey for May on Tuesday, the Fed's Beige Book on Wednesday, June producer prices and weekly jobless claims on Thursday, and the Consumer Price Index for June on Friday, together with the start of the Q2 earnings season.
Now, with other central banks around the world either in the midst of or preparing to tighten their monetary policies, the Bank of Korea is set to hold its July policy meeting later this week. So what can we expect there?
Well, this will be the first BOK meeting since Governor Lee Ju-yeol hinted at possible easing. That July monetary policy meeting will happen on Thursday, the 13th. It comes about a month after Governor Lee has said the BOK may adjust the degree of its expansionary monetary policy if economic conditions keep improving to a significant extent. That did mark the first time we heard such a comment from the governor. Nevertheless, market consensus is seeing a rate hike from the current historic low of 1.25% to be not in the cards this month or this year. Despite the double-digit pickup in outbound shipments in the first half of this year, many analysts as well as overseas investment banks have the view that the central bank will not move until 2018. Some say the surprise improvement in the long run will be muted moving forward, given pressures from dropping oil prices and a strengthening won, not to mention that eyesore of a piling household debt. This has been Eunice Kim for Business Daily.
LG Electronics has scored big on a number of consumer reports in Europe with the performance of its OLED televisions. LG's OLED models topped the performance charts in separate tests conducted by consumer agencies in Spain, Sweden, Belgium, Portugal, and the Netherlands. LG is the most dominant player in Europe's OLED market, enjoying a 63% share of the premium television market in the first quarter of this year. A company official said the glowing consumer reports on LG's OLED products will help solidify its foothold on the European market. The construction of the 5th and 6th Shingori nuclear power plants may be suspended in light of public concerns over nuclear safety. The Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power Corporation will hold a meeting on either Tuesday or Wednesday to pass a resolution on stopping all construction of the 2 reactors located in Busan. The decision comes after a meeting last month failed to yield a consensus on the matter. Now, the move is part of Moon Jae-in administration's plan to phase out nuclear power by shutting down older reactors and halting the construction of new ones. The number of cruise ship passengers to Korea has tumbled in recent months due to China's economic retaliation over Seoul's decision to deploy the THAAD missile defense system. According to industry data, the number of inbound cruise passengers tumbled 95% on year in June to around 11,000. The figure has declined steadily in recent months, also plunging 91% in May compared to a year earlier. China's package tour ban has slammed Korea's cruise tour industry, with Chinese tourists accounting for over 90% of the nearly 2 million cruise passengers seen last year. The Korean film Okja recently caused a stir in the industry with its simultaneous release on Netflix and in theaters. And now, one of Korea's most famous pop stars is also trying something different with his latest music release. Our Lee Jung-yeon has the details.
When we generally think of music albums, we often think of CDs or LPs, things you can hold in your hand. However, Korean hip-hop artist GDragon likes to think outside the box. The Big Bang singer has released his latest album on a USB that contains just a link and a password to download the songs online. The move prompted Korea's official music chart, Gaon chart, to refuse to consider it an album, saying it defines an album as music on a physical format. GDragon's agency YG Entertainment accepted the decision but criticized it as outdated. Public opinion on the matter is also divided.
I don't think it's an album because there's only a link.
I think it's an album and it's been acknowledged as creative content, so whether it's an album or not is insignificant.
I think it's an album because it's made convenient for users to download online.
All differences aside, the idea is certainly original.
People who buy GDragon's latest release need to connect to an online server through the USB. It breaks the existing frame of content by creating a direct channel that's more suited for the digital age. So it's seen as a revolutionary and different from the pre-existing method of content production, distribution, and consumption.
But it's still unclear whether the singer's revolutionary decision is good or bad for the industry.
GDragon's album offers a direct link to consumers, so it's more profitable for the artists. But whether that's a step forward or if it will expand the music market is uncertain. It might even diminish the streaming market, perhaps even driving it out completely, which in turn might harm consumers' rights.
Regardless of the controversy, Billboard in the US did accept it as an album, and it topped the Billboard World Albums chart 2 weeks in a row, a first for a K-pop artist. From LPs to CDs and digital streaming services, the way we listen to music is constantly evolving. Whether GDragon's latest release is acknowledged as an album or not, experts say one thing is clear. His bold idea will spur further changes in the content's distribution industry. Lee Jung-yeon, Business Daily.
Studies suggest that climate change will have a lasting impact on Korea's agriculture industry, with the ubiquitous red chili pepper in danger of being wiped out within the next 30 years. It's even predicted that in 100 years, rice farming could be close to impossible. However, a new research center has been created in hopes of preventing these scenarios by studying how crops could be adapted to survive the changing climate. Our Lee Ju-young tells us more.
Amid rising concerns over climate change all over the world, Korea Rural Development Administration opened the country's first weather modification facility for crop research and development. The facility functions as a control tower where meteorological conditions affecting the growth of crops can be manipulated artificially. Temperatures can be set from -10 degrees Celsius to up to 40 degrees, and carbon dioxide levels can be maximized up to 1,500 ppm. In particular, the facility can create up to 50 millimeters of artificial rain per hour, a feature that no other cloud seeding system in the world has been able to achieve. The short-term goal of the facility is to find ways to reduce the damage caused by climate changes in agricultural products. The local farm industry has been widely affected by rising temperatures. In particular, Napa cabbages and chili peppers, two main ingredients for making kimchi, have been found to respectively rot quicker and be highly susceptible to anthracnose outbreaks. At this pace, it is forecast that it will no longer be possible to cultivate chili peppers by 2050. Even rice production is expected to dip by 20% in the next 30 years. To tackle this issue, the weather modification facility expects to develop stronger crops that sustain abnormal weather conditions.
We're currently seeing a surplus in rice supply compared to demand, but climate change is requiring us to come up with new measures to maintain a secure line of supply for the future.
The Rural Development Administration said that it has plans to add more types of produce in its research and that the facility will be open to universities and private firms that wish to expand on their own agricultural research projects. Lee Ju-young, Business Daily.
Exporting fruits or vegetables has been a challenge due to difficulties in keeping them fresh on long trips. But a team of Korean researchers has developed a new technology to preserve their freshness for a longer period of time. Here's our Park Se-young with more.
These Korean melons called chamwe are carefully wrapped and loaded into shipping containers. It will take about 2 weeks before they get to markets in Russia, but the melons will stay fresh thanks to the special packaging. Korean researchers developed a packaging film that slows down the ripening of fruit and keeps their freshness for longer by allowing oxygen to get in. They also created these shock-proof containers equipped with temperature and humidity controls. Farmers are happy about the new technology because the difficulties of shipping abroad have until now mostly limited them to the domestic market.
Exporting to Russia will be very helpful for the county residents and farmers since the fruit is seasonal.
Together, functional packaging and ICT can help reduce rates of damage and extend shelf life.
This opens the door to vegetable and fruit exports to Southeast Asia, the US, and Russia, and creates new sources of income.
Thanks to advancements in technology, Korean fruits and vegetables are gaining competitiveness in the global market. Park Se-young, Business Daily.
With the impending retirement of the baby boomer generation, there's a growing interest in planning a post-retirement life. So, how can people achieve a balanced life after retirement? We look for answers in Miryang's Anchon village, considered a village of happy retirees.
The slopes of Kumhosan Mountain in Miryang, Gyeongsangnam-do Province are known for their pristine environment and beautiful surroundings. Country homes can be seen here and there in the forest. Roughly 200 households reside in the village, and 90% of them are retirees from cities.
The residents of the village have mostly come here after retirement. They come from diverse professional backgrounds, including teachers, doctors, lawyers, and journalists.
At the local cooperative space, residents with diverse backgrounds have gathered, including teachers, doctors, artists, and professors. They've gathered today because there's a meeting for the publication of the village newspaper, Anchon. These residents, ranging from 3 to 10 years into retirement, say that retirement is a new beginning, not the end of social life. The village newspaper was a starting point to that end.
We made a newspaper combining the opinions of many people to express the desires of the village residents and examine the best way to further upgrade our village.
From light news stories in the village to coverage of the residents' hobbies, the newspaper is an opportunity to come together and provide a sense of accomplishment.
The residents do the writing and pay for the cost of distribution. I appreciate that kind of attitude. I trust that our village will be unified and that there will be further development. I also feel a great sense of accomplishment.
The reporters roamed throughout the village to gather information. Lee Bong-woo was an elementary school teacher in Busan. After retiring in 2012, he relocated to this village with his wife.
There were many difficulties at first, but I think I'm now at a certain level thanks to help from residents and experienced elderly ladies and gentlemen.
Lively interaction with neighbors is a very important factor in retired life. Ms. Han cooks dishes with the nutritious produce grown with her husband in their fields and invites neighbors to enjoy them.
미나리를 또 갖다 주셔가지고 미나리하고 저희 집에 부추, 그다음에 또 뭐 양파, 고추.
Contributions from the village residents turned the table into a mouth-watering spread.
또 많은 분들이 오셔서 너무너무 고맙습니다. 위하여! 위하여!
The residents all met here for the first time, but now they're more like attentive family than mere neighbors.
I have 2 granddaughters. When they get sick, neighbors help bring them to the hospital. I feel satisfied with life because I'm living well, in a different way compared to my past.
Ms. Han took up traditional calligraphy after retirement. She is living a new life as an artist, even winning awards in national art competitions. She advises that a hobby is a necessity for a happy retired life.
Because the lifestyle is very different from the hustle and bustle of city life, people can easily get bored or have other thoughts. Some learn Western painting styles, others write essays or poems.
Chun Sang-yeol, one of the first arrivals at the Anchon village 15 years ago, enjoys listening to music. He even built a separate music appreciation room where he engages in his hobby. A fan of classical music and movies, he is known as the village's culture coordinator.
There were just 5 new households at first, so we gathered every night to listen to music and discuss various village issues.
The village's culture was able to take root through the efforts of the first retired residents, including Mr. Chun. Now, new changes are appearing in Anchon. Younger residents have been appearing as they plan for their post-retirement lives.
Many people left behind their homes in the city to come here and commute. The arrival of many young people has been very helpful to enhancing the atmosphere of our village, thanks to their talent donations and various other factors.
Anchon is a village of retirees where careful planning has brought together work, hobbies, personal life, and community. We applaud the resident start of a second stage in life.
And that wraps it up for today, but we'll be back tomorrow with more business news that matters to you. So don't forget to tune in then. Thanks for watching and goodbye.